Hi, I'm Rich Torrey. Welcome to another Level Up Cartooning. All you need to follow along with me is a pencil and paper. It doesn't get any easier than that, right? Now, before we get started, make sure you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button as it helps this channel to grow, and hit the bell so you never miss a lesson. So we've been wading through and drawing some of the Disney classic animated scenes or poses, not necessarily in any order. We started with Steamboat Willie, then Bambi, and then Dumbo. And suddenly I realized that we hadn't drawn anything from the movie that, along with Steamboat Willie, put Disney on the map. And that, of course, is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Released in December of 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is the first full-length animated film in U.S. history, and adjusted for inflation, it is still one of the top lifetime grossing movies worldwide today. That's quite a feat. Anyway, while I was tempted to draw the Seven Dwarfs, and we'll get around to that, if we're drawing classic poses or scenes, there is none more classic than Snow White's encounter with the Wicked Queen, disguised as that old woman and her poisoned apple. And so that's what we're going to draw. So what do you say we get started? We're going to draw our scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen step by step, giving you the secret formula to be able to draw them again and again. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I normally use the characters' heads to figure out how big the entire character is. In this scene, both Snow White and the Wicked Queen are slightly over 3 heads tall. In other words, however tall their heads are, their entire bodies are just over 3 of those tall. One other thing I wanted to point out, while her head size is the same height as Snow White's in our drawing, in her disguise as the old woman, the Wicked Queen's posture is hunched over, making her slightly shorter than Snow White. In our drawing, Snow White appears to be about a half head taller than the Wicked Queen. Just something to look for as you map out your pose. Okay, so let's draw the roadmap for our scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen. So there's our roadmap for our iconic scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen. Now before we go on to step 2, I want to give you the layout of our 2 characters' bodies using simple shapes for those of you who want to screen grab. Something to help you when you're laying out your 2 characters in this scene. Okay, so now we're on to step 2. In this step we do what I call roughing out the features. I want to remind you that until the 3rd and final step, you want to draw as light as possible. You'll see that I use guidelines to help you to know where to put both Snow White and the Wicked Queen's eyes, noses, mouths, and other features. We don't want those guidelines in the final drawing. So you want to draw them light enough to be able to erase them easily. Okay, so let's rough out the features of our scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen. Okay, so there are the roughed out features for our iconic Snow White scene. So now with the roadmap done and the features roughed out, it's time for that final step. In step 3, we get to have fun. We get to draw in the final details of our iconic drawing of Snow White, the Wicked Queen, and her poisoned apple. We don't have to guess where to put things because we've already done all the hard work figuring that out. Here's where you want to take a moment to look at your drawing while it's still lightly sketched out and fix or change things before then committing to drawing those final lines. And even as you begin those final lines, you don't want to just mindlessly retrace over what you've already drawn. You should still be thinking about how you might improve it, staying vigilant until the very end. Okay, so let's draw in the details of our scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen. And that's how you do it. There you have it, our iconic scene of the Wicked Queen as the old woman handing Snow White the poisoned apple. So how do you think you did? Understand, if you've never drawn Snow White or the Wicked Queen before, you cannot expect to have drawn them perfectly. You'll notice I don't spend time coloring our scene of Snow White during this video because I want my lesson to focus solely on the drawing process. Now you have the secret formula, the process for drawing our scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen. And with that, you can draw it again and again. By all means, color it when you're done. I promise each time you draw it, it'll be a little better and a little easier. I also promise the more you work with me, the better you're going to get at all of your cartoon characters. So I'd love to see your scene of Snow White and the Wicked Queen. If you can, take a picture and post it on either Facebook or Instagram. And don't forget to include the hashtag #LevelUpCartooning. So I hope you had as much fun as I did with this one. Remember to subscribe, and thanks for joining me. Until next time, keep drawing, my friends.